Yeah, what's good? This be the G Shaw Cypher. You officially tuned in to On the Grind Live, where we support anybody out there grinding in any capacity. It don't matter what that capacity is, as long as it's a grind that you want to talk about. And if you want to talk about it, this is where you need to be. Shout out to everybody out there grinding. Shout out to everybody doing what they do on a daily basis. But you know the mantra: when you see me, you see dope people. Again, I'm gonna repeat myself. When you see me, you see dope people. So without further ado, I got somebody that's dope with me. Been grinding for a long time, going in. Wanted to make sure he was here, focused, ready to go. Landon, what's going on?
How we doing, Shy? It's good to be on, man. I appreciate you. First of all, before we even get started, shout out to yourself. Shout out to the grind. Shout out to 106.7. Shout out to every single person who is tuned in and part of the family. Shout out to
Right,
every single person who is out there grinding. Okay,
right.
because not only that's what this show is all about, but that's what life is about. And I would get naked, but I'm on the air, so I ain't gonna do it.
Yeah, we
But
don't want to do all
I got a
that.
whole tattoo on my chest that says "Grind Forever," and I'm being so
Right, right,
serious. Like that was my very first tattoo, "Grind Forever," because I knew at a young age, grinding is the only way. That's the only way you're gonna succeed. Because it don't matter
right,
how
right.
talented you are, if somebody they're outworking you. Somebody's out here outworking you. You better get on your grind.
Definitely. And that's a fact. And that's why we call it On the Grind Live, because regardless of whatever you want to do in life, you need to grind in order to succeed. Right. So, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that's important. And the fact that you got that tattoo, says a lot that you really mean business when it comes to everything that you got going on. You get
It's a
what I'm
mentality.
saying?
It's a mentality.
Um,
Yeah.
but let's dig deep. Last time we talked on Power 107.6, the truth, right? Shout out to everybody that's listening to us from there. Can you tell us more about how your early exposure to gospel music has influenced your sound today? Because I know we talked about the gospel music side of your life, and coming up. So dig deeper for me on that.
Yeah, I love it. That's a good question. I love it. So when I was super young, uh, I mean pre-birth. Okay, my mom was heavily involved in the church, heavily involved in gospel. There's something to be said, I guess. The South's got something to say, as they say, and
Right.
Southern gospel was definitely heavily. As a matter of fact, I would probably credit gospel with being the biggest single contributing factor, not just because of the genre that it is, but because of the fact that how early on I was exposed to it, literally in vitro, inside my mother. My mother is singing in Christmas cantatas. She's singing in praise choirs. She's singing in worship. She's leading. She's on stage every Saturday. I grew up, in a Saturday worshiping church instead of Sunday. But regardless, we were in there every weekend. And my mom, that was her signature move. She was on stage. She was singing in some way, shape, or form. And I've
Right.
definitely read some studies, and if your listeners want to get deeper into it, you could go Google the same stuff that I'm talking about. But whatever you expose a baby to in the womb,
Mm-hmm.
their environment affects them before they're even born. And so,
Right.
unbeknownst to me,
Right.
my mom was out here, oh, my gratefulness, singing these giant cantatas and these solos and stuff, and it was having a profound influence on me in the womb. So naturally, as I got a little older, we stayed in church. And so it was only right that I was probably 7, 8 years old, and I was sitting at that same piano in that same church that, we had gathered around so many times. And I was starting to finger pick out and hear melodies. Jesus Loves Me. It was the very first song that I ever played on just pressing the
Right.
keys.
Right.
And
Right.
it was at that point that my mom and some people around me started to look, and they're like, "Uh oh, this kid, what is he doing? Who is this guy?" And so
Right.
it just evolved into that. So heavily influenced by harmonies, melodies, the things that gospel is rich in. Gospel is
Right.
less about rhythm. Gospel is less about percussion. Gospel is more about soul. Gospel is more about vocals. Gospel is more about, and that's not to say that gospel doesn't incorporate those elements. I don't want you to feel that by any way, shape, or form. But anybody that's
Right.
heard
Right.
gospel, there is a core soul involved in it that doesn't necessarily exist everywhere else.
Right.
So shout
Right.
out to all the gospel singers, those church musicians, y'all the real ones. You don't
Yeah.
realize how hard these musicians be going to church until you go to a real church where they be in there going in, and that
They be going in. Yeah,
you'll
I
find
mean,
some world class musicians inside of churches, bro. I swear.
right, and they really dedicated to that particular instrument. Not only are they doing it for the Lord, right? They dedicated to that instrument. And they go hard. So
Yeah,
shout out to all the all the people in those churches,
all the church
on those
musicians.
instruments
Yeah,
and playing that music. They put in that work.
that's facts.
Some point in your life, you grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly.
on that.
Well, it's
So
close to correct. Yeah, it was. So strictly speaking, well, I grew up in the country, so like
okay,
Delco, North Carolina, is
no,
actually where
okay,
like our family house was. But I have been living in Wilmington now. Moved to the city probably a little over a decade ago. But the reality was, our church was in Wilmington. You know, our food. Anytime we go get groceries, you know, like
right.
we lived in the sticks. In the sticks. I'm talking about neighbors that were out of eyesight. Right.
Oh yeah, I hear you. I hear
So
you.
we went into Wilmington. It was like Little House on the Prairie. All right, we're gonna saddle up and go for provisions. Everybody get in the wagon, you know. And so we
Yeah,
go to
yeah,
town and get everything you need for the next 2 weeks, and we're not gonna be
right.
back in Wilmington for another 2 week type thing, type thing.
Yeah, I
So
hear you. So
Wilmington,
let
North
me ask.
Carolina is the closest like recognizable landmark.
Recognizable. No, no, it makes sense. You know, being growing up in that area, really in the sticks, like how does that alone, you know, shape your artistic expression? Because I know you can talk about that in your music and your experience in those, you know, in that area, and what you had to do to transition to, you know, to go to the city and things like that. Like, how has that shaped Landon as an artist
Hmm.
today?
That and once again, that is an incredible line of thought. I love it. I think the two biggest things that really stand out to me, excuse me, first of all, would be it encourages self-sufficiency. It encourages or self-sufficiency. It encourages like a measure of self-solidarity in the sense that when you're out in the middle of nowhere and
Right,
you're a musician, right? So strictly speaking, like my grandma gave me my first instrument when I was 9. She gave me a ukulele and she taught me how to play Little Brown Jug. So the ukulele was all I had for the next couple of years. And me and that
right,
ukulele got to be best friends. I could tear it up on that ukulele and then graduated to guitar, circled back around to piano. But the point being is when you're so far removed from like any other influences, because once again, in comes hand in hand with the way that, the location and everything, we were super sheltered. We weren't listening to a bunch of music. We weren't being exposed to any type of anything. It was incredibly constrictive environment. It was very, very conservative. It was very, very. We were vegan. We didn't have a TV. I didn't.
right,
We weren't no cell phones, no internet. You know what I mean? So when you're in the middle of nowhere and the only thing that you have is a piano and a hymn book, or a piano and a just relatively limited resources, it forces you to have a bit of self solidarity. Like you really have to believe in what you're doing in order to do it every
right,
day, because there's nobody there helping you. There's nobody there pushing you along. And that would be the first thing. But then the second thing also was it kind of gave me a sense of rebellion in this because like I said, with being so restrictive and conservative and stuff. Like I remember one time I sat down at the piano. I had just learned Easy Like a Sunday Morning by Lionel Richie,
right,
and I sat down to play it. And I remember my dad coming in and yelling at me and going, how dare you play that secular music in my house? Okay. Because this is Christian
right,
music only. If you play
right,
something out of
right,
the
right,
hymnal, if you're going to play something, you play something out of the hymnal. We don't play this secular music Easy Like a Sunday. I don't want to hear that. Right. And in retrospect, hilariously enough, with no disrespect to my dad, that's like some of the softest music. Like
right.
I pop up on a piano right now and play Easy Like a Sunday Morning. I'm not cussing. I'm not doing no type of that. Like that's some of the smoothest, most beautiful piano music that you can get around to, is that era, that style. But to
Right.
him, it was still so offensive. Oh, it just blew his mind. How dare you use this piano for anything but Jesus? I'm like, all right. So it was a little bit of rebelliousness. In all reality, I look back and I just wanted freedom of expression. I just wanted to be able to branch out a little bit genreically, right, and not feel attacked for it. And
Right.
so it gave me that sense of, hey, people are going to hate on you. Regardless of what art form you choose, people are going to come around and find a reason to tell you to be quiet. And it's up to you
Right.
to demand that respect through your craft. Be a
Right.
master of your craft. Be good enough at what you're doing that people could come around that tell you to stop doing it. Have no, like, if somebody sucks at the violin and you tell them to be quiet, there's somebody out there that's going to say, well, that was well warranted because they don't sound good. What I'm saying to you creatives is be so good at what you're doing that if someone comes up and tells you stop doing that, they have no foundation to make that statement.
Right. Right. And that's a fact. I like the thought process around that. Speaking of secular music, right? Like music outside of outside of what you were able to play. One of the people you looked up to that had a significant influence on you was Lil Wayne,
Mm.
right? So from a hip hop perspective, like, how has that influence impact your music and creative process, because you was introduced into
Oh, yeah.
Lil Wayne, and you was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Well, Lionel Richie's one thing, you know what I mean? But the people tuning in right now probably like, how you go from
Uh,
Lionel Richie to Lil Wayne? Well, listen,
right.
music is music. If it's dope, it's
Hey,
dope. But for you, You know what I mean? It meant something to you. So, break that down, how you were able to really transition into that, especially in the
Yeah.
areas where, you only had limited resources.
Right. Well, that's the thing is like, once again, there's a saying that goes, strict parents raise sneaky children.
Facts.
So
Yeah.
it's being strict on your kids, and once again, my parents, I'd love to believe that they were doing the best with what they have, and they're genuine people. I don't think they're that they had any ill will towards me at all. But strict parents breed sneaky kids, and you are going to be, they would have been so much better off than just to introduce me to music as a whole and say, here's a whole giant field of expression. Now pick your poison.
Right.
Right. But they were so terrified and concerned with my Christianity or my eternal soul that so the Lionel Richie was one thing, like you said, but then there was literally there was a flip. There was a switch that got flipped. I remember, I'll never forget it till the day I die. Shout out to Jonathan Dotton. Jonathan Dotton, my best friend back in our little church days, super tall, super athletic, good looking, looked up to bro, loved him to death. He was the coolest guy ever. He went in the Navy.
Right.
Still living down in Florida as far as I'm aware. John, if you get a chance to hear this, I love you, bro. But he came to me and I was sitting at the table once again, little under a rock,
Right.
church kid, right? Doesn't know anything. He comes to me and puts headphones in my ears. And at that point in time, like LG Chocolate was out. Some of the very first Samsung touchscreens phones were out. So like super basic, like
Right.
MP3s were just, first becoming a thing. You could have a device with music on it. Everybody
Music
was,
on it. Right.
we're
Right.
talking about 2000 and what, 6, probably 2005,
So that sound about right. Yeah.
whenever everything was streaming. What streaming wasn't around yet. You had to go to LimeWire and pirate some stuff and then load
Pirate
it
some
onto your
stuff. Right.
MP3
Right.
player. And everybody had the iPods and stuff. And he comes to me with his iPod Shuffle and a pair of earphones, and he puts Lil Wayne in my ears. And that was the first time that I had ever heard any hip hop, any rap, anything like that. Now, to rewind a couple years, when I was 8 or 9 years old, I started to write poetry, and I was popular enough within small circles like my church and other people that they would ask for copies of it, and I would handwrite a poem and then go make copies, 5 or 6 copies, and all the old ladies in the church, they just, oh, Landon wrote another poem, and they just thought that was the coolest thing, and I would distribute poetry amongst these church members. So I was already gaining a foothold unknowingly into the realities of what hip hop can be, which is music and poetry, the fusion thereof, of music and poetry, which is really what hip hop artists are poets. I mean,
Right.
if you lay it at the rawest form, at least in my opinion. So when he put the earphones in my head, Georgia Bush was playing. That was the very first hip hop song that I ever heard. Georgia Bush, I'm from a town where everybody drowned it, everybody died, but baby, I'm still praying with you. And my mind was blown. Mine was blown. I'm like, he's not singing. What is he
Right.
doing? He's rapping, bro. Just listen. And he turned it up and he let me have his iPod for the rest of the day. I heard everything from Georgia Bush to Three Pete to Lollipop, like all this music. So this
Right.
actually
Right.
probably would have been 2008 because I know for a fact that I
Right.
listened to
Right.
Lollipop that
Lollipop.
day,
Yeah.
and
Lollipop.
the
Yeah.
Carter 3 came out in '08. So '08
Mhm.
would have had to been.
Right.
Point
Right.
being is, yeah, and for the rest of the afternoon, man, shout out to John. I had his iPod on shuffle and was just listening to everything that I could listen to. And after that, I would go home, and in the middle of the night, I'm snitching on myself. My mom's gonna talk smack to me later after this. I would creep down the hallway because we had a radio. That was the one thing. We didn't have TVs. We didn't have laptops. We didn't have internet. We had a radio. And I would go down the hallway with my adapter and my own set of headphones that my parents didn't know about. And I would plug my headphones into that FM radio and I would tune it to my local hip hop station, 97.3. Shout out to Big B and DJ Champ and all them. And I would catch those midnight mixes where they were playing the Hot Boys, they were
Right.
playing Jeezy, they were playing all this later 2000s trap. Oh my God, T.I., are you kidding me? And so I was hooked. And for months and months this went on. I ended up leaving home at 16 years old, and at that point, obviously the cat's out of the bag. I got my own iPod and I downloaded
Right.
everything I could find. But there was a
Right.
short period of emancipation where I was still living at home and couldn't go anywhere. But I knew the truth. I knew there was
Right.
something beyond Tennessee Ernie Ford and John Denver and these Christian groups that I had been introduced to. And I started down this road of hip hop, and it wasn't long before it took me through the Roots. It took me through
Right.
Andre 3K. It took me through Big Boy. It took me through Mob Deep. It took me through Goody Mob. It took me through, and the list goes
Right,
on. It
right,
was an incredible, incredible time, bro. And there's a reason that I have Hip Hop Addict tattooed right above that Grind Forever. It's right here
right.
on my heart. It's tattooed because that's where it all started.
And that's a dope story. You get what I'm saying? From the beginning all the way to transitioning and to listening to it, and now you embrace it as an artist yourself. So fast forward, we're talking about a single that we played on the radio last time we talked, "Love You Tomorrow." Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that. I know you recently released that this year. You know what I mean? Shout out to I Swim with Shark. Shout out to everybody that's been supporting Landon on that. But
Yeah.
you break down that record and who else is who you collaborated on that record with as well.
Yeah, no. So that is the hookup on that. The hookup on that song was nothing short of miraculous. I was under management for a while by a gentleman named Sean Bonner out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and much love to Sean. I hate that things went the way that they did, but we ended up parting ways. But while we were together, he introduced me to two very key people in my life, as far as music is concerned. The first of those being Jay Styles, and he is actually the youngest member of Blackstreet, as a matter would have it. At the very moment, he is. Let me not lie to you. I believe he's on tour with Teddy Riley and those guys right now, if I'm not quite mistaken. He
Okay.
told me that November was going to be full of it. But so Sean introduces me to Jay Styles. Jay Styles is in Charlotte, North Carolina, in EQ Studios. Shout out to Jay. Shout out to EQ. And I went up there, and we had arranged to do a project together, a 3-song project. And two of the tracks I specifically, like I told him, I want to come to the studio and build with you. I'm super organic when it comes to my process. I'm not a big fan of let me send you some beats. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because like
right,
in all
right,
reality, I love to cook just from scratch, from an idea, from a concept. But he did take the liberty of making me a beat. And ironically enough, that turned out to be the greatest, in my opinion, of the 3 tracks, was the one that he pre-made
right.
specifically for me and sent to me. So I had it a few weeks in advance of me going up there. So I had the song written when I got there. So that was the very first thing that we worked on. And it came out super nice. And Jay is, and I say this with love, but he is an incredibly intimidating singer to be around as a vocalist.
Mhm.
And, I'm used to being damn near the best vocalist in any given room, right? And that sounds a little
Right,
egotistical, but I'm confident in my craft. I've done my 10,000 hours. So any
right.
given time I'm in a room with singers, I like to think, man, I'm the best singer in here. Ain't nobody in here, just hanging with me. I get to Jay's studio. This dude, I'm in there singing and singing and singing, and I come back out. I was like, I like it. I wish this part was a little better. I wish this part was a little better. And we're tweaking stuff. We're doing stuff. And he goes, so what you should do is, ooh, and he just like hits this run in front of me. I'm like, oh, come on, bro. I can't. This man, but it was crazy because I was uncomfortable. I was super uncomfortable. I realized immediately in that moment that I was not the nicest singer in this room, and there's only 2 of us in here. So I
Right.
was like, all right, what am I going to do with that? Right. So he coaches me through this record. So shout out to Jay. Once again, I wrote all the lyrics, but the melodies and the runs and the way that song is constructed would not be the same without him. So shout out to Jay. But like you said originally, shout out to I Swim with Sharks. Shout out to Symphonic. Shout out to TC, best manager ever. Shout
Yeah,
out to Dre, my label rep there with
definitely.
Symphonic. They're the ones that took the song. They're the ones that picked it up, saw its potential. They're just like, hey, because I had dropped it, with relatively no promotion. I just wanted to be out. I wasn't sure what the pathway was for that song. And they came by and scooped it up and said, no, Symphonic we got this one. Trust me, we're going to do something with this one. And so far, I've had the opportunity to sit down with people like yourself, multiple other podcasts. It's on a college radio in East Atlanta right now spinning.
Right.
They've started syncing it, started pushing it towards sync licensing and all this type of stuff. And the song is
That's
it's
what's
gonna
up.
do something. It's got a good positive message too, which is great.
Yeah, it's definitely a great song. You get what I'm saying? Definitely a
I
great
appreciate that.
song. We got it in rotation, you know what I mean, ourselves, and we've had it spinning. You mentioned something earlier too about your organic recording process.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things you try to avoid is like punch-ins and things like that, right?
Mm,
So,
yeah.
how is that, affects your how does this thought process when recording affect your music authenticity, because you want to make sure, you say you want to be able to cook right then and there, right?
Mm,
You don't really want it pre-made, and in the case of Love You Tomorrow, that's a little bit different. It resonated with you, but usually you want to get there, you want to build it from scratch. You know what I mean? You want to get straight to it. You don't want to punch in at some certain point. You're in that feeling, like, what why is that important to you to do that? that way?
I think so. The biggest thing that stands out to me when you make stuff from scratch like that is ego plays a huge part in the creation of anything.
Right,
In my opinion, ego is so fundamental. The lack thereof, right, or too much of ego, either one of those things can throw you off your throw you off your game. So when I cooked with Jay, he sent me the song ahead of time, and part of my ego was like, man, he made something. I don't, I was already predisposed not to like it just because I wasn't there when he made it. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, right,
And so it was an exercise in my ego immediately. I had to calm myself down. I'm like, that's stupid. This instrumental is incredible. You need to write to this. You need to give this the time to sit. Right. And so when it comes to, like you said, a bunch of different takes, I was able to do that song relatively quickly because it was already written. Right. We already knew to an extent how the layers were going to go. We did
right,
some tweaking, we did some experimentation, but I sang all the verses end to end. I'm not punching every bar. There's no way I'm doing that. So I sang the hooks. We worked on the hooks first. We stacked all the hooks and put those where they should be. And then I was able to do one pretty much fluid run of all the
mhm,
main vocals throughout that song because I had the supporting layers already in place. And so when I got in the booth, my whole goal was to sing that song from start to finish because I
right,
knew the song well enough to do so. Now, that's not to discredit artists. If you're in the studio cooking, if you're experimenting with stuff, if you're doing something like we talked about just from nothingness and you're creating it, it goes hand in hand. Like I often tell artists, like people love to get drunk or they like to smoke when they're writing music or when they're in the studio. And my advice to people, and this applies to myself as well, is feel free to create while you're under the influence of something because your inhibitions are naturally going to be lower. So your true self is probably going to be more apparent if you're writing while you're a little bit tipsy or a little bit stoned, maybe, right?
right,
But when you go to do the recording itself, do that sober because you want your execution to be good. You don't want to be sloppy. You want to know what the entity is before you approach it, right?
right,
So that was my blessing with Jay in that instance. I was able to come to the studio, already know the song, and all right, as long as we cook these hooks and we stack these layers and put them right, all right, now let me loose. Somebody else's son, and you go in and you sing the song.
right, right,
And so the other two songs that I cooked with him, though, we cooked from scratch, and neither of those songs have final vocals on them. To this day, me and him are still going back and forth about these remaining two records because of the fact that we cooked them from scratch, and I laid scratch vocals, but nothing's been finished because I don't know the direction of the song is not complete. The
right,
thought
right,
process is complete. So you have to have enough ego to trust yourself, but don't have too much because then you're going to end up feeling the pressure. Well, I got to do this now because we're doing it. No, bro. Relax a little bit. Let the song come to you naturally, because if it's
right.
like a ponytail, if you got to force it, it's probably not very good.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You know what I mean? I definitely hear you there. Could you share how networking and building genuine relationships has played a role in your career development?
That's in any career, man. It doesn't matter
Right.
what you're trying to do. You could be trying to sell bricks. You know what I'm saying? It don't.
Right. You gotta
You
make
could
sure.
be trying to sell bananas on the street corner. It don't matter what you're selling, bro. If you don't know people, that's the whole biggest thing. And I spent the good, time wasted once again is a valuable lesson. I spent the first probably 4 or 5 years of me being in the studio, right? Because I was doing music live long before I was introduced to the studio environment. I
Right.
was used to performing live. I would go to events. I would play piano and sing live for people at churches, conventions. I won my college's Cape Fear Community College. Like I won their talent show, their honor student
Okay.
talent show, with not only the judges vote, but also the crowd vote as well. Like I had a double header and won the entire thing,
Right.
performing live, but had never been in a studio before. So by the time I got introduced to the studio, I began to actually build my style as far as a creator. What is my genre? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? And it was interesting because like I said, time wasted. I wasted probably a good 4 years, not only trying to figure out what my sound was, right, but also
Right.
navigating the networking part of it because there was a part of me, that ego that said, oh, look, my transcendent talent is just going to bring the people flocking and it's just going to be that simple. I get in here and drop a few songs. Everyone's going to recognize my lyrical greatness and the world's going to be mine. No, the harsh reality was even back then, the culture had evolved to the point where in order for you to get somewhere, you need one solid song and a long continuous period of promotion to
Right.
break the
Right.
record, right? Fetty Wap, he chased Trap Queen up and down the East Coast for 2 years
Two
before that
years
song broke.
before it popped. Yeah, exactly.
And so I didn't know these things. I'm thinking to myself, I put a song out. As soon as the internet gets it, I'm going to be famous. I'm the greatest rapper alive. No, you're not. You may be a fantastic rapper, but the harsh reality is before you can before you can promote it, you have to hone your style. You have to figure out what you're actually doing with your music. And then secondly, you got to take that and go talk to people, beat the streets, talk to the right folks. So I wouldn't be a symphonic artist today if it weren't for going out doing shows that maybe in the moment didn't seem as meaningful. When you get into a house to perform for somebody and there's 30 people there, part of you is like, oh, I wish it was 300. Yeah, but if it's 30 people, you should give them 110% of your performance, whether it's 30 people, 3 people, 300 people, 3,000 people. It
Right.
shouldn't matter. You should be in there to sing your heart out and give your best. And by doing that, somebody in that crowd of 30 turns out was some members of Boom Sound Promotions from Virginia, which led to TC, which led to Dre and the deal.
Right.
So the long and short of it is networking is the single most important thing that you can do. It doesn't matter what your product is. Go talk to people, because if you sit in your house, you're never going to sell anything. You're never going to interact with anybody. And most importantly, you're never going to bless anybody. That's what this music is for.
Right.
If you have the gift of music, if you have the gift of creation, go bless other people. We get one chance to do this. Use it to bless folks.
Right.
Give
Right.
someone a gift that they can never forget.
For you, for potential fans that get introduced to your music, what can fans expect from, any upcoming projects, any upcoming, releases and things, and then how does it differ from, how do you think it'll differ from any prior work? Like, what do you think the fans will grasp from the music that you put out?
Well, I hope that they gain a blessing. Like we just said, that's the most
Right,
important
right.
thing to me these days. And it wasn't always, which is great, not only for myself, but also for my fans. I had to go through a hell of a lot of character development, and still am, to be
Right.
able to sit in front of you and humbly say, here I am. I'm trying to bless people, because there was a very long period of time. I say very long period of time, a significant amount of time. Let's not put a name on it, but where I'm here to get rich. I'm doing music for the money. I want to get paid. I want to be a millionaire.
Right.
And it turns out that if you can let go of those things and just focus on the art and bless people, that the money will come, the fans will come,
Right.
the love
Right.
will all come, because you're coming from a place of genuine, genuine respect and love for other people. So you can expect variety from my releases. That would be the first thing. The song that's out now, Love You Tomorrow, is very Silk Sonic-esque, big band, some horns, you know what I mean? A very nice rhythm section. Like it's contemporary R&B at its finest, in my opinion.
Right.
The 2 other songs that I have with Jay are very much like trap John Mayer, I guess.
Okay.
Light, fluffy vocals, very, very controlled vocal runs, nice concepts, plucked guitar, some trap drums in the background, 808s and stuff like that. That's what I've got with Jay. I've got some incredible big boomy pop records with a phenomenal producer named K Figs, once again out of Charlotte. He's the guy that produced Yayo for Snooty Wild.
Okay.
So bro's got platinum records. Like, he knows his way around some keys. He knows how to produce. I've got some records with him that are hiding in the background that are legally done and paid for, and everything's ready to go. But I'm, waiting on this release schedule to be able to put them out. You can also expect a series of songs from my band known as Cape Fear Rising. I've got a band here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Me and my buddy Nate Lorenz, we collaborate on music. We just dropped a song literally today called Demons. Not to detract from Love You Tomorrow, but if you guys want to go check out Demons, and it is great Southern reggae. It's not hip hop. It's not pop. It's just straight up reggae. Shout out to Mark Siegel, Forrest Tabor, Bassman X, everybody that contributed to the project. So you can expect variety. You can expect me to use my voice in multiple different fashions. And once again, every single song that I put out, it needs to be something that's thought provoking. It needs to be something that pushes you forward. We don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to keep hearing the same stuff over and over and over again.
Right, and that makes sense, right? You want to be able to give people different things to think about and feel, and do what music naturally does, right? Is to generate specific emotions based on what the topic is. So I can definitely hear you. What lessons have you learned from your musical journey that you will pass on to aspiring artists?
Well, it kind of goes back to the ego thing. If you are a creator, if you're making music and you want to be an artist, if you're making something and you feel uncomfortable by it, that's almost, to me, a surefire guarantee that it's going to be good.
Right.
Because once again, you want to avoid being comfortable all the time. If an artist gets in the studio and they just do this, they make the same track 50 times, where's the growth? Where's the experimentation? You know what I mean? So just be true to yourself. especially producers, because producers create the sound. And I'm a self-produced artist. Majority of my tracks, my discography, if you go listen right now, I made. But then you have the exceptions, like talented folks that get in there, like Jay and Figs and others. But if it makes you a little uncomfortable, that is a good thing. When you get in the studio and you're cooking something, you're like, man, I don't know if I like this.
Right.
You should like what you make, and the eventuality is that you might warm up to it. But I wouldn't don't discard stuff, artists. Don't throw stuff away. Oh, this ain't it. It might very well be it. What you're doing right now, just because you feel some type of way, give it some time. Let it come naturally. Because if it scares you a little bit, if you're in the studio, you're like, man, I don't know if I like this. Keep churning it. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Besides music, is there anything that you got going on that you're really excited about, or there's something that you want to pursue that you're like, man, I know I'm doing this, but this is dope too. I want to dive into this lane and this situation. Like,
I'm gonna learn how to sew my own pajamas. Come on, Shy. We're gonna make some flannel pajamas out here. No, I'm just messing with you. Man, okay. Other than music, my main other passion other than music is would probably be fitness and my old car. I got a 1967 Plymouth Belvedere.
okay.
67 Plymouth Belvedere 2, the 4-door version. And I'm blessed to say me and my little brother over the past 2 years have spent probably $7,000 or so on parts for this engine, and we're this close to getting it together. It's starting to, like, final assembly is going to be here in the next couple of months. Okay, and I'm going to have a fully restored 67 Plymouth with. So we started out with the 318. I don't know how much you know about engines, but we started out with a 318, and we had it bored out to a 323, so it's a little bigger. We put some Magnum heads on it, a comp cam setup, so it's a hot. Right. It's a hot cam, like it's gonna crack. It's gonna have a lope. By the time we get done with it, you're gonna hear me in traffic, like just angry, bro. It's gonna be the nastiest. It's a sleeper because it don't look like much. The outside is kind of rusty. It's got a few rust spots. It's like the old Dodge blue color, not much to look at, right? But then you hear that thing, you're like, oh Lord, he's gonna wax me. So I'm excited about the old car to get ready. And believe it or not, right after this interview, I'm about to pop some pre-workout and I'm gonna go do chest day. I'm gonna go do push day. I really am in love with the gym. I've gained over 80 pounds of muscle in the past 3 years. I went from weighing 140 pounds and I weigh 220 as we speak. So eat your chicken, kids. eat your chicken, eat your vegetables. You know what I mean? And go in the gym and put some work in. And it's 8:40. It's 8:40 p.m. here. So once again, just with all love, I say to everybody, go do what you got to do. Right. You know what I mean? Discipline is key. I would love to go lay down and just go to sleep right now or watch some TV or whatever else that humans do, right? But I'm about to leave this interview and I'm going to the gym because I haven't had a chance to go yet today. So we're going to go put this work in.
Yeah. And anything else is uncivilized. Definitely putting that work in. You said something that was important. Discipline, right? Like, in everything that you do, you got to have some form of discipline, man, in order to. That goes along with the grind. Like you can, because procrastination, man, that'll get you. That was like, why don't you sit down for a couple of minutes?
I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. No, bro.
Go ahead and do it. We need it right now. We need it right now. If you don't get it right, then you're on your way to perfecting it. You know what I'm saying? So
hey, we get one chance at this, Shaw. We get one chance at this, baby. Let's do it. Let's do it till the wheels fall off.
Definitely. Listen, man, I appreciate you tuning in with us. Tell the people where they can find you. What's that social media, websites, all that good stuff.
That's love, man. First of all, y'all need to go check out the Grynd 106.7 with Shaw Cypher. Okay, that's the first thing you need to go do. If you don't do nothing else, I'm glad that you came here. The second thing is, my name is Landon McClellan, Landon, and McClellan is McClellan. You can find me on Instagram at Landon McClellan NC. Okay, that's all the social media platforms. That's Facebook, that's YouTube, that's everything else. Go check out my YouTube. If I could really get you guys to go look at anything, I take a very huge amounts of pride in my video productions. Right, shout out to the Moonrunners, shout out to director Illy Rock, shout out to all the models and the professionals that I've worked with to put my videos up. My music videos on YouTube are state of the art. They're bar none. Like the only person shooting better, clearer music videos than me is Chris Brown. I mean, but anyhow, you got to spend the money. You got to take the sets. You got to, get the models in. You got to do the stuff that needs to be done. I don't have no half-ass videos on my page. As far as my official music videos, there's plenty of vlogs and covers and me doing random stuff. But if you go watch my official music videos, youtube.com, Landon McClellan NC, and any streaming platforms, you can go check out Love You Tomorrow. Shout out to TC. She's currently doing a lyric video edit over some super crispy footage that I took at a studio here in town a couple weeks ago. So that's the next video drop on my page is going to be an official lyric video to fill the gap between now and when my production is finished for the official video drop for the song.
That's what's up. Always giving them something, some sauce and some
Woo,
things
woo.
to check on. You know what I'm saying? Keeping it consistent and the discipline and all that. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you tuning in with us. Go ahead and get your workout on. Keep grinding, keep doing what you do on a daily basis. We are happy that we had the opportunity to talk to you. You know what I mean?
Happy to come. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you having me, Shaw. It's been an incredible experience, and I hope to come back, man. Anytime you want me
Yes,
back,
sir.
we'll pull up and make it happen.
You already know I got the number. I'm sending a message like, let's get it. I'll talk to you, man. Enjoy the rest of your
Got
night.
you locked.